The call went out.
We have to go to Dunkirk.
Ready on the stern line.
What are you doing? You know where we're going.
Into war, George.
I'll be useful, sir.
One of ours.
He's on me.
So I just came back from the screening of Dunkirk, and I have to say I did not like this movie at all. In fact, some part of me really hated it. That being said, I'm willing to let it sink in for a while, and I might watch it again. I will give my grade at the end of the video, but this is subject to change. If I like it more, if I find my opinion to be biased, I might change it. But for now, I want to talk about Nolan's character because that is the biggest complaint I have in the movie. I have no complaints about Nolan's movie technically wise. His sound design, cinematography, editing, practical effect was beyond amazing. In fact, he's a master at those. The problem I'm having was his characters. Sometimes plot, not always. But for the purpose of this video, I'm gonna talk about the characters because I think for me, characters are one of the most important parts of a movie. Because if I have a movie that has characters I don't care about, why should I care about the entire movie? It's the people involved in the movie that carries the plot and everything else. For me, people matters more. To be fair, in my opinion, before Dunkirk, this is not the first time when a Christopher Nolan movie has character development problem. Some critics said Nolan's characters are morally gray. Rorschach from Watchmen is morally gray because his methods were violent and his personality is borderline psychopath. But he was trying to do the good thing and punish criminals. But what he doesn't realize is what he thinks is good is not good, but he genuinely believes that he has good intention. Severus Snape is a morally gray character because even though he's very mean and sometimes even cruel to his students, deep inside we see he cares for Harry and he wanted to protect him and even loved him. I don't see any traits of morally gray character in most of Christopher Nolan's movies. In fact, some of the characters are straight up assholes. In Memento, I love the storytelling, I love the editing, I love the way it was shot, but I never felt the urge to see the movie again. Mainly because the main character is just a horrible person. Willingly or unwillingly, he caused his wives to die. But to make matters worse, he cheated on himself and blamed his problems on other people. Every sympathy I have throughout the movie for all the trouble he went through is vanished, and I do not feel he earned the respect he had in the movie. The next time I watch it, I don't even care about the plot because why should I? I don't even care about the character. Why do I want to care about anything happened to him? Same thing with Inception. DiCaprio's character not only single-handedly responsible for the death of his wife, but he put his entire team at risk just to fight his own demons. Throughout the film, he did nothing to redeem himself. He showed remorse, yes, but he didn't do anything in real life to improve the situation or make up for his mistakes. Just because he wanted his kids back doesn't necessarily mean he loves them, and throughout the movie I don't see any other signs that he really loves his kids. Well, just watch any episode in Law & Order and you get what I'm trying to say. The worst case here was in Dark Knight. Apart from Harvey Dent, aka Two-Face, I don't see any characters shown any developments throughout the movie. Bruce Wayne rarely showed up. Alfred is the classic or even stereotypical mentor. Gordon looks clueless all the time, and the Joker, who was great in the film by the way, doesn't seem to have any personality other than being cynical and crazy. I can sum this up by just showing one scene in the movie, the interrogation scene that everyone said is the most important scene in movie and probably in all comic movie history. Let's analyze it. First of all, let's take a look at it.
Garbage who kills for money. Don't talk like one of them. You're not. Even if you'd like to be. To them, you're just a freak. Like me. They need you right now. But when they don't, they'll cast you out. Like a leper. See, their morals, their code. It's a bad joke. Dropped at the first sign of trouble. They're only as good as the world allows them to be.
And now let's compare to this scene in Heat.
So you never wanted a regular type life? The fuck is that? Barbecues and ball games? Yeah. You know, we're sitting here. You and I are like a couple of regular fellas. You do what you do, I do what I gotta do. And now that we've been face to face, if I'm there and I gotta put you away, I won't like it. But I'll tell you, if it's between you and some poor bastard whose wife you're gonna turn into a widow, brother, you are going down. There's a flip side to that coin. What if you do got me boxed in, and I gotta put you down? Because no matter what, you will not get my way. We've been face to face, yeah. But I will not hesitate. Not for a second.
See any difference? The only reason why I'm comparing these two scenes because according to Nolan, this coffee shop scene in Heat is what inspired him on the interrogation scene in Dark Knight. But I don't see them to be the same thing. Firstly, notice who is talking in this scene in Dark Knight, the Joker. Batman barely spoke a word. In fact, all he does is commenting on the Joker. In Heat, we see both characters talk. This tells me that in Dark Knight, at least in this scene, the Joker is the center of the attention, while in Heat, both De Niro and Al Pacino share the same spotlight. But most importantly, this interrogation scene is supposed to be the spotlight of Dark Knight, where we see both Joker and Batman face to face for the first time. And this is what we got? Listening to Joker's monologue just like every other scene he's in? Second is the content of the dialogue. In The Dark Knight, the Joker is more or less giving a speech about philosophy, about madness. But in Heat, we see both characters talking about things that's way simpler, from daily life to their fears. Third and last, the resolution. In the end, we see Batman hit the Joker in the head, but throughout the movie we don't see any emotion. His face is covered under a mask, and his voice is disguised, so it's hard to tell whether he's hitting on Joker is what Joker provoked him, because in the beginning of the interrogation what he did do, he hit the Joker's head. And how is that different from how he interrogated any other criminals? Well, in Heat, we see both characters learn a little bit more about their opponents and shared some kind of a friendship between them. So when they, in the final shootout, we cared about what happened to both characters, and which makes the ending more tragic. Something I want to make clear, I am not a Christopher Nolan hater. In fact, I enjoy Dark Knight Rises and Interstellar. I think Nolan realized his problem and therefore he did make improvement. In Dark Knight Rises, it happened to be one of my favorite Nolan movies, if not one of my favorite comic book movie of all time. The film focused solely on Batman. He had no crime to fight, loved his loved ones, failed in investment and running out of money, and even worse, became suicidal. And as if it is not sad enough, Bane arrived and beat him to a pulp. In fact, he almost killed him. Bruce Wayne is his lowest point of his life. He has to learn the value of life. It is not about dying aimlessly. It is about living for a purpose. He has to fight against his fear that he used to refuse to acknowledge. And when he rose from the cave, I cheered for him and I felt he earned the respect. The film did the unthinkable. They made Batman came to the light where it never happened in the comic or in the movie. His action not only saved him, but inspired everyone around him. This is the perfect character development, and every time I watch it, I loved it even more because not only I cared about it, I'm invested in it. Some people might call it a Rocky ripoff. Well then, Star Wars had ripoff of other B movies in the past, so having a little bit of quote-unquote ripoff is not necessarily a bad thing. Same goes with Interstellar. Cooper's relationship with Murphy is the main heartstring and his main motivation. He's just a farmer who wanted to save his family. He doesn't want to leave his family, but he has to do it in able to save Murph. He doesn't want to break Murph's heart, but he had no choice. So when he saw the video sent by Murph throughout the years that he missed, I felt his joy, pain, and regret. It gets very emotional for me, and then when I care about characters, I cared about everything else around it. Sadly, these two movies that I loved turned out to be the two films Nolan fans complained the most, because in order for character development, some of the script has to be sacrificed. But for me, I would rather see a more interesting character than a perfectly developed plot. When I watch a movie, I value three things: characters, plot, and spectacle. Plot is the story, characters are, characters, and spectacle includes things like cinematography, music, and so on. I hate to say this, but Christopher Nolan and Michael Bay had a lot of similarities. They both focus on spectacle, whereas the script becomes almost supplement. The biggest difference is Christopher Nolan focused on spectacle, but he also thrived to be creative, and he is trying his absolutely best to make the best story possible, where Michael Bay just completely given up on making a story and tries to quote-unquote make movies for teenage boys. So compare the spectacles, they both are really good at that, but Nolan is a little bit more innovative. In fact, Michael Bay is not innovative at all. Christopher Nolan always get the story right. Well, if Bay sometimes tried to get the story right, he never really did. His story feel like it was written by a bunch of committees to please the teenage crowd. I really hate to say this, but Michael Bay had better character development in his films than Christopher Nolan, because, don't get me wrong, Michael Bay had horrible characters, but at least he attempted to have some sense of development, where Christopher Nolan just given up entirely. You may say having the plot and the character is the same thing because they come from the script. Not really. In Rogue One, the plot were amazing, and in my opinion, the story is much more interesting than other Star Wars movie, say The Force Awakens. But the characters in that movie were so dull that I failed to pay any attention to what happened throughout the movie. Sure, the ending is great, but so what? There were also movies where characters are more interesting than the plot, like Suicide Squad. The characters were really colorful, and I really like Will Smith and Margot Wright's character, but the plot is just a gigantic mess. I enjoyed aspects of both movies, but I didn't enjoy either. For me, I emphasize character a little bit more, because they're the whole reason why I'm paying attention to anything going on. Some people may say you can have an abstract and creative movies as long as your plot is interesting, you don't need to care about your character. I can counter it by saying 2001 Space Odyssey. The movie goes wild and confusing, but the main character played by Keir Dullea is the reason we care about. In fact, throughout the movie, his development, we see his background. The filmmaker Stanley Kubrick gave us reason for us to care about him. So to sum it up, how do I like Dunkirk? I'm gonna give it a 6.5 out of a 10 because I don't consider it to be a movie. I consider it to be a bunch of special effects. There were some serious problems with the plot and the storytelling, if there is element. I don't feel like I'm watching a war movie. I'm feeling like I'm watching a bunch of sequences of events that's happening that is very incoherent, and most importantly, I'm very disappointed in the characters because I don't feel anything at all throughout the entire movie. It's very close to be the top 10 worst movie of the year so far, given how good all of the other movies are. But maybe sometimes later I'll give it another go. But frankly, I don't see my opinion gonna change for this movie. There are moments in the movie where I laughed out loud when it was not supposed to, because the storytelling was such a mess that I couldn't help it, and the characters were very wooden, even though they were well acted. It's just the script describing them are not very well done. I apologize for that behavior in cinema, but I really couldn't help it, and I know my opinion is gonna make a lot of people angry, but I'm sorry. This is how I honestly feel, and to be honest, I don't think my opinion is gonna change anytime soon. So, after saying all these, I will be doing a spoiler-contained Dunkirk review because there are more things about the characters that I want to talk about. I may or may not see this movie again, but frankly I do not want to see this movie ever again because I really don't enjoy it. Guys, thank you so much for watching my video, and please consider it to be a new viewpoint. I may come out more negative than I thought it would be, but this was my honest thoughts. And if you like my video, please click subscribe and please share your thoughts on the comments, because if you think I'm good, you're pretty good too.